Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the kind of person who likes to start things on time, so let's do that. I'm Dr. Liu. I'm the chair of the English department here at Eastern, and welcome you all to this English at Work alumni panel. We have 4 panelists who are all working in the field of higher education and student affairs. Higher education student affairs, and I hope you'll really enjoy hearing from them about their careers, their graduate work, and so on, how their English degree from Eastern helped them get where they are today and might help them move forward, and so on. How this works is I'll introduce you shortly to our student moderator for the panel. There'll be about 45 minutes of questions from the moderator to the panel, and then the last 15 minutes we'll open it up to the floor for your questions. And we'll have some backup questions in case there's crickets out there when we ask for your questions. And yeah, so we'll be here until about 5 o'clock. So I will introduce now our student moderator. Emily Hill will be moderating today. She's a senior English major here at Eastern, graduating in May. Her concentration is English for elementary and early childhood education. She's the president of our chapter of Sigma Tau Delta, the International English Honor Society, and she's a university honors scholar. And so I'll turn it over to Emily.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. So I'm just going to introduce the people that we have on the panel first, and then we'll just get right into some questions. So all the way down at the end, we have Melissa Dwelly. Melissa graduated from ECSU with her honors English degree in 2012. She later earned a master's in education in student personnel administration at Springfield College. As a graduate student, she worked as an academic support graduate assistant for the Office of First-Year Students at Western New England University, where she counseled academic probation students and taught non-credit academic success courses to at-risk first-year students. Following an internship at the admissions and financial aid offices at Springfield Technical Community College, Melissa was hired as a communications specialist at STCC, where her primary responsibilities included maintaining retention-related SMS text communications, managing a dual enrollment program, and serving as a designated school official for international admissions. Since 2016, she has worked as a communications officer for the Yale Young Global Scholars Program at Yale University. In this role, she manages a comprehensive marketing strategy and international alumni base for a pre-collegiate academic summer program that serves high school students from around the world. Then we have Reese D'Angelo. Reese graduated from Eastern in 2011 with her BA in English. She then went on to pursue an MS in Counseling and Higher Education Student Development, graduating from CCSU in 2014. Specializing in first-generation college student development, Reese has experience working in both student and academic affairs at a variety of higher education institutions, including Eastern, Curry College, Wesleyan University, Fairfield University, and Goodwin College. She is currently an academic specialist at Quinnipiac University, helping students become better learners. Additionally, Reese works as a consultant to the College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Communications at Quinnipiac. Since 2014, Reese has also served as a speaker, covering topics such as diversity and inclusion, first-generation college student success, purpose finding, time management, peer supervision, Strengths Quest, and more. Then we have Megan Vo. Megan graduated from Eastern in 2013 and then went on to Hofstra University, where she earned an MFA in creative nonfiction. She will be completing her MS in autism and applied behavioral analysis from the University of St. Joseph this May. During her undergraduate career, Megan was connected to residential life as an RA and in student activities through the Leadership Development Program, LEAP, and Repertory Dance Troupe. At Hofstra University, Megan worked in student leadership and activities to coordinate leadership and service opportunities for the community. Since 2015, she has been at the University of St. Joseph as a member of the Student Affairs staff, where she is currently the head of the Office of Residential Life. And finally, we have Monica Mordowanek. Monica graduated from Eastern in May 2017 and currently attends Salem State University, where she will be receiving her Master's of Education in Higher Education and Student Affairs in May of 2019. Monica currently is in her second year of working for Residence Life at Salem State, where she oversees all daily operations of a traditional-style residence hall of approximately 290 first-year students. In this role, she supervises 12 resident assistants, 24 desk receptionists, and 1 mail assistant. As part of her master's program, she also She has also held 2 separate internships, one at Southern Connecticut State University in new student and sophomore programs, and at Salem State with undergraduate admissions. Monica's favorite part about working in student affairs is helping push students out of their comfort zone and get them to better understand their own identities. All right, so I guess the first question that we have for y'all to answer is, how did you make the decision to choose student affairs as a career? So if you just want to start with like Melissa and then move down.
Okay, so as an English major here, I was considering a lot of different options as an undergrad. Obviously, a lot of English majors here plan to teach, and that was not something I was interested in. So I was considering technical writing for a little while. While I was considering all these different options, I was working at the Advising Center as a peer advisor, and I was also tutoring writing as well. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the administrative part of it. I enjoyed working with students one-on-one. And so when the time came to graduate, I just made the decision to continue doing that and went straight into graduate school.
So I worked in the student center when I was here on campus, and I loved it. I was pretty involved in different clubs and organizations, and so I was going to school to become an English middle school or high school teacher. And I did everything except student teach. And I got to that point, and there was this turning point where I had to kind of figure out, is this really what I want to do? And I decided that I wanted to teach, kind of, but I didn't want to be in the public school system. So I actually talked to the dean of, who's now the dean of students, Michelle Delaney. She was my supervisor at the time. And I said, you know, what am I going to do? I've done all this education. I don't want to do it anymore. And so she said, you love working in the student center. Why don't you pursue student affairs? And so I did. And so that's how I got into this field. And it's not at all what I thought I would be doing when I was probably sitting in your seat. And it couldn't be more connected to my role also as an English major here at Eastern.
I also came into Eastern expecting to teach, but I think it was my first year that I dropped the education portion and just went for the English degree. I knew that I needed to do something after school, and I think it was my senior year of college that I ran through every possible list of what can you do with this degree and where is it going to go, and the only thing that really made sense was higher ed. It was something that was so important to my college experience, whether it was being an RA or being an orientation leader, connecting with different clubs and orgs. I spent so much time doing those things. And that's kind of where I ended up. But I didn't go the route of going straight into higher education because I went for a master's in creative nonfiction first. Hofstra had a really great higher ed program, but I chose specifically to get a job in higher education while getting an education in English through the creative nonfiction program, because I still wasn't 100% set what my next step would be. So I had a graduate assistantship that gave me career experience, but I was getting an education in a direction. So I still have that door open that if I want to continue with my creative nonfiction and teach or pursue publishing or anything like that, I can. But my heart is still pulling me to student affairs based off of my experiences so far.
Alrighty, well, my route is definitely different. I have a sister who's 11 years older than me, and she is in student affairs, and she also went to Eastern and is an English alum as well. Like, wow, what a concept. I know, right? We're like twins pretty much.
11 years apart.
Yeah, just 11 years apart completely. But so she was heavily involved on Eastern's campus as well. She was an RA. So when I got into campus, I decided that I wanted to be an RA, like, so bad. But after my first year, I had this thought that I was going to transfer. I was like, I want out of this school. I'm too far away from home, blah, 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 all this stuff. And my hall director at the time convinced me to stay. She was like, no, you're meant to be here. If you left, like, there would be a hole missing in Eastern's heart. So you really need to stay at this school. So I decided to stay. I missed the deadline to apply to be an RA, so I lived with my friends my sophomore year. But my junior year, I did become an RA, which was an absolutely life-changing experience. And then after that, about like 1 month into being an RA, I was like, hey, Crystal, how'd you get your job? Because I want it. And so my sister like really helped like mentor me like through the whole grad search process and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
And you were a writing tutor too.
Yes. Yeah, I was a writing tutor. I was. I loved it. After I became an RA, because you're not allowed to hold 2 on-campus jobs, probably still the same, I'm assuming. After I became an RA, I knew that I couldn't get paid to be a writing tutor, so I decided to do it for credit, like as much as I could. So I would like ask professors, I'd be like, hey, do you need a tutor, like a writing tutor in your class? Like, I'll do it. Just because I like loved it so much. So, yeah.
Okay, so what are the responsibilities that you hold for your current job?
Okay, so my title is Communications Officer for the Yale Young Global Scholars Program, and I wear a lot of different hats. One piece is that I manage the alumni base of over 6,300 students from over 120 countries. So I run events for them, run the ambassador program, so I handle that piece. I also handle marketing. So during the summer, I'm the photographer, graphic designer, marketer. I basically just curate content. And then during the marketing cycle, I market that content in the form of flyers, social media campaigns, print campaigns, in-person recruitment, things like that. I come up with a very comprehensive marketing strategy to market the program to students. And then once the application deadline ends, I put on my admissions hat. So I'm reading applications, I'm making admit decisions, all sorts of program implementation kind of thing. And then the program happens and the cycle starts again.
So my title at Quinnipiac is an academic specialist. What the heck is that, right? I'm basically an academic consultant. So I work with students on time management, study skills, a lot of learning strategies, something called metacognition, which is thinking about the way that you're thinking in your classes and preparing for your assessments, that sort of thing. So a lot of what I do is meeting with students one-on-one. But I also work as a consultant directly to the College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Communications within Quinnipiac. And so based on the trends that I'm seeing and hearing with my one-on-one meetings with students, I then can inform the deans and the faculty of those schools to make curriculum decisions or program decisions as well.
So my title is the Assistant Director of Residential Life, but it's more than just Res Life at USJ. We're a small school, so I have my hands in all things student affairs, from orientation to student conduct, leadership development programs, the administrative side of the Res Life operations. So I do everything from our website content, our internal content, creating new forms and flyers, and writing all of the different administrative processes for the Division of Student Affairs, working closely to connect students across their entire experience. Our university is much smaller than Eastern, and so we have all hands in all different areas of responsibility depending on the time of year that we're in and what's the next event that we're working towards.
So my formal title is a graduate resident director. So here at Eastern, you all have hall directors that live in the building 24/7. So that's pretty much me, except I'm a graduate student. So I run the daily operations as a building, as my bio said. I have about 290 first-year students who live in my building, traditional style, community bathroom, all of that stuff. I'm also a conduct hearing officer, which that's probably like my all-time favorite part of my job. So I do that as well. I do a lot of committee work. I don't know, I also work in admissions right now too, so like that kind of overlaps a lot into my Res Life job, which I really didn't expect, but I'm kind of like now their like liaison between residence life for everything like open house wise, or tours that come onto campus, or private tours that they do, which is really interesting. And then I supervise my RAs as well. So that's doing like implementing a residential curriculum model, which is a very intense process, especially if it's like a new one that's coming in. So I'm like building curriculum, building learning outcomes, and creating some type of learning environment inside of the residence hall, which is pretty awesome. I don't know, I wear like many different hats right now. I feel like I'm like all over the place, especially being a graduate student, because they can kind of pull you in all different directions and you say yes because you want the experience. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like you all have a little bit of a different experience with student affairs, a lot of it with Res Life and academic advising, and I don't know if you all will be able to speak on this question, but what are some of the other job opportunities that you might find under this umbrella of student affairs? I don't know if you all want to answer that one or
Take that one. So one of the reasons I went into student affairs was because there was so much opportunity, and I specifically picked my graduate program at Springfield College because there was a fieldwork component. There are actually 3 fieldwork components. So throughout graduate school, I was a graduate tutor. I worked in financial aid at a community college. I worked in admissions at a community college. I worked at Western New England in academic support services and actually taught classes. So I kind of took advantage of graduate school so that I could gain access to all these different areas of higher education. My cohort was very interesting. You had a clear division between the people who loved residential life and student affairs and really wanted to work with students. And then you had some of the people in the middle who were really interested in academic advising. And then you had some of the outliers, like me, who was really interested in the random things like registrars and financial aid, and admissions to an extent, and communications and marketing. So there's quite a lot of different opportunities to pull from within higher ed.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I started off working in building operations, which is making sure the student center is running the way it's supposed to be running with the student staff and that it's not falling apart and that events are going well, that sort of thing. Loved that. I had no interest to do the residential life route. I knew I wanted to start a family and it just wasn't for me. But I worked a lot with Res Life indirectly. And then I went from building operations to doing a very traditional event programming sort of thing late at night. So first year out of college, I worked 5 nights a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights until 2 a.m. Did that at Curry College. It was horrible in a lot of ways, but amazing in some others because I got to have relationships with students where they're after hours and planning events successfully, and there's hundreds of students that are showing up on a Friday night at 10 p.m. to like put goldfish in a jar or something. But it's just a different type of relationship with building with students I really loved. So from there, I then worked in orientation and leadership, both here and then at Wesleyan. I was also in building operations. Fairfield U, I did some leadership stuff as well. And then I found my way to Goodwin College, where I worked in admissions, but I was actually in the advising realm of admissions, so talking to people about what credits would transfer into the school and guiding them their first semester at the school. And I ended up at Quinnipiac doing what I do, and I'm in neither academic affairs nor student affairs currently. It's kind of just this amoeba of a department that collaborates with everybody, and that's one thing that I really love, given the variety of my experiences leading up to this point as well. I have a pretty global perspective in terms of higher ed, and that's something that I really love.
One of the things that I've experienced, both in my experience but also the degrees that I have attained, is the intersection of the opportunities that you have. So it's not just higher ed degree leads to a higher ed job. It's not just an English degree leads to a job in English, whatever that means. There's opportunity for you to take different areas of interest and different opportunities and things that you've learned and become passionate about and find a way to incorporate that into the work that you do. And I see that with the student affairs divisions across a bunch of different universities that you look at. Sometimes athletics is involved in student activities, and public safety and diversity education are all under one umbrella. And sometimes it's different makeups where you have different departments, but there's an opportunity for all of these different areas of interest and specialty to intersect and realize, well, we're all here for the student, and we'll find a way to make that part of their experience and make it successful.
I think they covered it all.
Okay.
Before we move on?
Yeah,
I
go
add
ahead.
Something? Something else that I've had a chance to do, you might have as well, is actually to teach. And I didn't, as you remember, want to be, a teacher in the K through 12 system, but at Fairfield U and at Goodwin and in my current role, I do have the opportunity to teach students. I work with the FYS program, which is a lot like FYE here. And at Goodwin, I was teaching a human services class. So there are other opportunities to teach in addition where I don't have to be a full-fledged English professor, and I still get that interactive experience in the classroom with students as well. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. What master's program did you complete or are in the process of completing? And how did you make that decision to attend grad school for that specific program?
So I talked a little bit about this before, but I went to Springfield College. I got an MED in psychology with a concentration in student personnel administration, which is kind of ridiculous name. Basically, I took a lot of counseling classes, which I wasn't exactly thrilled about. I was more interested in the fieldwork component because I knew that the more experience I had in higher education, the more I could put on a resume and the more I could market myself to job positions. But the counseling classes ended up being really beneficial. When I was working as a grad fellow in academic advising and academic support and intervention services, often my conversations would become impromptu counseling sessions where a student would have like a very real trauma or something that you totally were not expecting, but would make sense given the fact that the students' academics were suffering. So those skills really came in handy, and even just communicating with others too. So yeah, at first I really scoffed at the idea of counseling classes, but in the end, I found them really beneficial.
Similarly, my degree is my master's is in counseling with a concentration in student development and higher education. Most of what I've done late at night at Curry College or in my current role with academics and academic interventions, counseling, absolutely. And I was personally in and out of counseling when I was little, and I hated it. I was like, oh, I'm never going to do counseling. I heard that was one way to get into higher ed. It's like, oh, do I have to? I don't believe in it. And let me tell you, it was a transformative experience because I really got to see the other side of things. And the second I started helping people and using my communication skills and counseling skills to help others, I was sold.
So I traditionally went into the creative nonfiction program at Hofstra. I had taken the creative nonfiction course here and really fell in love with the opportunity that you have to kind of write and transform the story that before you. But like I said, I was still not 100% sure, am I going to teach in creative nonfiction? Am I going to go with a student affairs route? So I kind of kept feet in both fields. When I accepted my position at the University of St. Joseph, I chose to go with another master's degree, which is completely different from my entire education background, and get a master's of science in autism and applied behavior analysis, which I initially went into it thinking the students that are coming to college, there's a higher rate of students that are high-functioning autistic or were formerly diagnosed with Asperger's. Maybe I'll see them in my residence halls and I'll need to support them. And I was thinking of it just from that selfish educational perspective. But I have recently found ways that studying the behavior analysis side of it is really integrated into everything I do because we learn how to teach, we learn how behaviors impact and influence things, and most specifically, the manual that I wrote for my RAs. So it was about 100 pages that I wrote explaining to them how to do their job is an intersection of my English skills to be articulate, to be clear and concise, but also my skills looking at it from a behavioral perspective. How does this make sense? How does this transform from the page to the actions that somebody's going to take, and finding a way to find that intersection once again. It was very interesting to me to see how that kind of worked out in the long run.
So when I was looking into graduate schools a couple years ago, I really didn't know if I wanted to do like counseling based or administrative based. Like that's kind of how they like throw it out to you. So I kind of like applied wherever pretty much. I knew I didn't want to stay in Connecticut. So I just started like applying to all these programs and like learning as much as I could about them. So I had the opportunity to attend a conference called SALT, which is Student Affairs Leaders of Tomorrow. And what it is NASPO, which is a professional organization that a lot of student affairs professionals belong to. They put on this conference every year in different regions across the United States. So I had the opportunity to go, and there it like really solidified like what kind of program I wanted, and I knew I wanted something that had a lot of experience, something that I could like definitely dive right in, because here at Eastern, as part of my English degree, I had an internship with Residence Life as well, where I did a lot of their marketing materials, worked a lot on the RA manual, a ton of it. And definitely, I was there for 25 hours a week, which is like very heavy, but it was a really good experience, and being in that, I wanted to do something like that again. I wanted to just get more immersed in like how student affairs worked. So Salem State, the school I go to, we're required to have 2 practicum experiences, and those are very heavy. They have to be 160 hours a semester. So I did one over the summer at Southern Connecticut State University, working with specifically their orientation program. That's part of their new student and sophomore programs office. And then now I'm in admissions. But my program is also very heavily theory-based, so very big into like student development theories, kind of like how you can use counseling skills almost to help try to like gauge where a student is at in their development and help them proceed on either to like find out more about themselves, discover their own identity, different transitions that they go through. So that is something that my program is very much rooted in, and I appreciate that a lot because it really has helped me so far in my job in residence life.
So Megan, you kind of got into this a little bit, but what skills or abilities did you develop as an English major that helped you in grad school or with what you're doing now? I don't know if you want to like start at the end or.
Yeah, so as an English major, I was really interested in tutoring and composition theory and rhetoric, and so I definitely use that a lot in my current role. I have a reputation for diffusing really high-level emails, so we are a very competitive summer program at Yale. So we have students from all over the world applying, coming from very privileged backgrounds, and when they receive a deny letter, we get a lot of backlash, and so I am the person fielding those emails and those phone calls, and as an English major and communication is just key, and you would be surprised in higher education, people in high-level positions who can't write, and how much of a valued skill that is. And so, yeah, I'm writing letters, writing emails, communicating, even structuring arguments when I'm making a proposal or I want to change some kind of policy, considering who I'm talking to and how to structure that argument verbally and in writing, that really comes to play. So yeah, I think that I've had the opportunity at Eastern to really sharpen those communication skills and apply them in the workforce.
I think the thing that helped me the most was learning how to see other people's perspectives and points of view, and thinking about what I agreed with and did not agree with when looking at somebody's perspective. And my higher ed experience has allowed me to hone that, but I think it started at Eastern. when I would be thinking about what an author's intention was in a particular essay, or I also had a history minor, so thinking about what was going on historically when something was written allows me now to think about the political climate, not just in the world or the United States, but at my current institution. How is my communication going to be perceived, and with whom do I need to communicate strategically so my point of view gets across? I think my English degree all led me to be able to do that well in my current role. And also, a basic part of what I do right now is helping students with their writing skills. And so that is directly related, even though I was never, a tutor in the writing center or anything. Helping students develop their own ways of seeing other perspectives, I found, is incredibly helpful. And at my current institution, there's no one place for students to go and do that, and so a lot of them end up in my office.
I think Melissa explained it very well. A lot of the aspects of my job that have been directly pulled from my English degree is writing and being able to communicate in writing. A lot of students are able to say what they want to say, but they're not able to put it into an email. They're not able to propose it articulately, and either helping to shape them to do that or doing that myself to articulate my needs for the department, that I need more RAs, or that I need more funding for a program, or that I have this really good idea but it needs to be run past the cabinet level or the board of trustees, and being able to put together these proposals that demonstrate and craft an argument is something I do on a very regular basis, and it's one of my strengths in the role that I have, is being able to do that.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a lot of proposal writing, a lot of convincing people to do something that you need for your students. So a lot of the times I feel like it's me defending my students or why I'm doing this job, or how something is important. But something else I also want to add is that a lot of the social justice qualities I feel that I have in my role now have definitely come from the English department here at Salem State. Not Salem State, oh my gosh. That's where I work, Eastern Connecticut State University. Anyways, I did my senior seminar project with Dr. Spicer specifically on Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. So a lot of people don't really take the time to read that book, since it's from the 19th century type of thing. Dr. Spicer loves it though. Please go talk to her about it. And what we did was over the summer between my junior and senior year, I had the opportunity to go to research at Harriet Beecher Stowe's house in Hartford with Dr. Spicer. So this was an incredible experience, because a lot of the skills that I got from Eastern, I got to use in my role about how really a lot of those themes in the book apply still today. So that's kind of what my whole paper was about, because there's a lot of movies that still use themes of Uncle Tom's Cabin. A lot of just racism is just very ingrained in our society, and just trying to get out of that. So a lot of those skills I definitely learned from doing that project, and I apply it now almost daily in my position, especially at Salem State. So Salem State is, we've had a lot of racially biased incidents on our campus, and it's a lot of trying to repair the community as fast as you can after something like that happens, and just trying to have everybody kind of stand together against something. So that definitely helped me a lot from my senior capstone project, and I really appreciated that here at Eastern.
So concerning non-academic experiences, what other experiences did you have as an undergraduate student that helped you to prepare for grad school and for the career that you have now? Go ahead, Monica.
Okay. So I was highly involved with Best Buddies here on campus. Best Buddies is a nonprofit organization that pairs a person with a disability and a person without a disability in a one-to-one friendship for a whole academic year. So I was heavily involved with that here at Eastern. In 2014, when I was here, we won Best Chapter internationally, which was like a huge thing. But now it's still going strong. But a lot of this summer, I had the opportunity to work with Best Buddies again, and I went to their international conference, and I worked with college students the entire time I was there. Dr. McDonald was there with me. So it was a really incredible experience, just trying to help those college students navigate building those chapters on their campus and trying to better their chapters and whatnot. But yeah, that was a really awesome experience and something that will carry with me forever. I still volunteer with Best Buddies to this day. I do pretty much anything that they tell me to do, even though I live in Massachusetts. And I come down to Connecticut for almost all of the state events that they have. So, yeah.
I think in addition, the obvious connection is the Res Life side of my work, but I was really involved in student activities and doing the leadership opportunities, but bless you, through repertory dance troupe, being the president for 2 years, and as well as being in other e-board positions, being part of the Leap into Leadership. I think that's what it's still called. It was called something else when I went through it. But really seeing my potential to be able to lead a group, to gain that confidence and gain that experience. I don't think I would have gone the route that I did had I not had that opportunity to see myself grow and develop in that way. And it really led me to a place where I felt comfortable that now I am the head of housing and I am that face and that person that people need to go to, and I have more confidence because of some of the experiences and choices that I made along the way.
Yeah, I was also heavily involved in Education Club. I remained president even after I decided not to do K-12 education because I enjoyed the interaction with the younger college students. And I worked in the student center. I was a student center supervisor for 2 years when I was here. I also did a brief study abroad trip with Dr. Canterbury. I went to Ghana on the first Ghana trip that Eastern did, which was life-changing. So I recommend getting involved, not getting over-involved, not overextending yourself. Pick 1 or 2 things that you have an interest in, but also traveling as you're able. I did not come from a lot of money, and Eastern was able to help me a little bit in that. It also helped that it was related to academics. I did it with a sociology class, so keep that in mind if you get that chance. So all my different involvements got me to where I am today, of course, but I like what you said, Megan, about giving you a sense of confidence in your decisions. My being a president of the Education Club certainly helped me do that. And it taught me a lot about teamwork and working in a group, because often there would be decisions that needed to be made, and I knew what we should do, what I thought we should do, but other people, I learned, also have valuable opinions. And, well, you know, as a 19-year-old, this isn't necessarily easy stuff to figure out, and it's still hard, but at least I've had that experience to give me that solid foundation in communication and teamwork.
Yeah, I was mostly inspired through work. I'm a first-generation student myself, so I was the first in my family to go to college, and so for me, I had a very first-gen mindset. So in my free time, if I wasn't studying, then I needed to be working. So I had a bunch of different jobs on campus. A lot of them were related to higher ed, so tutoring and academic advising. So I do agree with Reese, though. If you do have the opportunity to explore a couple clubs or things like that that are of interest to you, I really recommend that. Because, as Megan mentioned, sometimes in higher education, your random interest can open up into something. And that's very much the case with me, too. I was very into graphic design and photography just as a hobby and never thought that it would ever apply to work, and that's a key role in my job right now. So I definitely, even if you don't see the linear connection right now, really expanding your network and trying new things is so important for growth.
Awesome. So did you work while you were in grad school? And what was your experience doing that like? Or if you're in grad school now, do you work currently?
Yes, I definitely work currently. So I work for Residence Life, but since it's considered a graduate position and they pay for my education, they pay for my tuition, I have to pay the fees, fun fact. Definitely look into that before you apply to schools. And since they do pay for my tuition and I get a 2-bedroom apartment on campus for free and I don't have to pay any utilities or anything like that, I do only get paid for 20 hours a week, which that sounds absolutely awful, but there's different ways that it like evens out in the end, just because of like my apartment in general is like absolutely gorgeous. And then I also get a meal plan too. So that's like kind of how that works. I do not have a side hustle. I'm not allowed to. But other than that too, sometimes I like nanny for families on the side too. But that has nothing to do with student affairs type of things. That's just because I just want to get off campus in like a different way and do something else. But yeah.
I also had a graduate assistantship in student leadership and activities. It paid for my education. My work now is paying for my education. There's plenty of opportunities for your master's degree to be paid for, so definitely look into all of those. But I sold sunglasses on the side, because what else do you do in Long Island? It worked, but you know, it was something where to get through college, you just worked a ton.
I had an internship at Wesleyan. I was their building operations person for their student center. It's called a university center there. So I did that, but for the first year, and it wasn't cutting the bills. So what I did was I actually came back to Eastern. I was doing my graduate work at Central. So Eastern, through my graduate internship here, paid my tuition at Central for my second year. And I was also getting a stipend as well to work in orientation here, which was an incredible experience. So I definitely think that there are ways to have grad school paid for, especially if you're in the state system here in Connecticut. But they are competitive assistantships, so keep that in mind.
It's almost like, where did I not work in graduate school? I think one year I had like 3 or 4 W-2s. I worked at admissions, financial aid at community college. I worked at Western New England in academic support. I was picking up hours as a writing tutor at Springfield College. And I also worked at a law firm too, just to pay the bills. But that's something that we've all kind of touched on in our answers too, and I think it's really important to talk about is money and expense of going to graduate school for higher education and the kind of salaries that you're getting in this field, because I don't know if you know this, but the salaries are not incredibly high. So you need to consider that when you're paying for graduate school. I think my program costs $50,000 for 2 years. And basically my advice to you is not do what I did and pull out loans for it or complete loans for it. I mean, I was lucky in that I pulled federal loans. I had people in my cohort who pulled private loans for it. That's really scary and a huge financial decision, and it's not necessarily something that you need to do in this field because there are so many opportunities for you to have your tuition paid for. Residential life is a great option because you're getting your meals, you're getting your housing, and a stipend. But there are also positions where I know of somebody who was interested in academic advising, and she had all of her tuition paid, and she went out in the Midwest somewhere. So there are, depending on your field of interest, definitely opportunities out there that can help offset the cost of grad school.
Oh, okay. So does anybody in the audience have any, we're going to open it up for questions now. So if anybody in the audience has any questions that they would like to ask our panelists, Dr. Liu will be glad to bring the microphone to you.
This is a small group, so don't be shy.
So I currently work in residential life, but it's for a high school. I do the assistant directorship, and I was briefly interim director. So my question to you, since all you seem to be involved in residential life, if moving into higher education, residential life setting rather than secondary ed, how much of a hindrance do you think it is to be working in secondary ed and not be involved in like campus or college life? And if there is any hindrance in that.
Do you have risk management experience?
Do I have what?
Risk management.
No.
So you're working on a residential campus? You probably have risk management experience and don't realize that's what it is. I'm not going to speak long on this because I don't directly have residential life experience.
okay.
But working in building operations, I will tell you, even if somebody had never worked in building operations before, specifically in higher ed, but they had risk management experience or could mitigate a crisis, it was very valuable.
I would say there's a lot more transferable skills than you think. And that's another thing about the English major. You know how to twist your words.
Yeah.
Do that when you're interviewing. And find ways to make yourself, to convince your audience about what skills you have and the things that you have. Risk management is huge. Being calm and under pressure is really huge. Being articulate in your communication. Because you're going to be talking to somebody, like through residential life, you'll be talking to somebody in their most vulnerable moments that they think they're going to get kicked out of school and everything, the world is over, and you have to be able to communicate to them in that moment that we're going to get through this together and we're going to work through that. So I think there's opportunity. Currently on my staff, I have somebody who's aspiring to be a preschool teacher, somebody who's aspiring to be a nurse, somebody who's aspiring to be a building manager, somebody who's aspiring to be a conduct officer, and someone who's studying for PT. Those are my 5 hall directors. None of them have any interest in staying in residential life. So part of it depends on the needs of the university. I specifically hired those staff because they're going to connect to my students in very different ways. So network, and sometimes you'll find that it doesn't matter what your specific direct related experience, but what's your transferable skills.
I'm just wondering, because you guys all have so many hats in your jobs right now, but how do you manage your time without, well, if you do get stressed, if you don't get stressed,
Yes.
without, going crazy? Like, you guys made time to come here today, like, how did you do that without, going crazy? Sure. I'll go. Right now I live by Microsoft Outlook calendar. Oh my goodness, if I did not have that in my life, let me tell you. I put every moment of the day on this calendar, even if when I'm eating, when I need to do homework, or else I'll forget to do homework and I'll get sidetracked with a student. Anytime I have any meetings, that all goes onto my calendar. I think the hardest thing that I'm having issues with still, even after last year, is just finding time for myself. So some time to decompress. So this past semester, I decided to join a community choir 2 towns over from my building. Yeah, I know, great, right? But I sang heavily in high school. I was in a competitive choir, and I was like, you know what? I need to get back into something. So that I knew it was a set time that would force me to get off of campus and go and do something. But definitely just making sure you just have to stay on top of it somehow, and just getting notifications on my phone, since I have to have my phone with me all the time as part of my job, definitely helps me a lot. Either that or sticky notes on my computer. I use a lot of Post-it notes.
I would say be realistic with your expectations for yourself and others, and follow through with your promises. So if you say that you're going to produce a certain amount of work, produce that amount of work. But if you know that that's not a realistic goal for you at this time, be honest with your supervisor and be honest with yourself. Don't try and beat yourself up and go so far that you're burning out, because that's not helpful to you and that's not helpful to anybody else. I think I only learned that lesson, maybe I learned that lesson recently. I personally just came back from a week off, and I am the only person in my department that knows the answers to everything. And I said, you've got it. I'm going for a week. Don't call me. They didn't, and the place is still standing. So getting yourself to a point where you can trust others, and they can trust you, and it's balancing. It's a lot of leaning on each other, but being honest with yourself and your expectations, and following through with your promises.
Say no to things.
Yes.
I got asked by one of my former supervisors in student affairs here at Eastern to come on Friday and speak to a group of students in the leadership group. And that's my jam. I would love to, but I was already committed to come here, and I have a young family. I have an 18-month-old at home, and it's just too much. So I was devastated, but I think saying no to some things, even if it feels a little uncomfortable, is good. Also know that when you say yes to something, it means no to something else.
Yes.
No, I think that's a really, really good question, and there are definitely ways you can make that balance between work and home. Different institutions definitely have different cultures. So I've worked at some institutions where it's 9 to 5, you go home, that's it, you're done for the day. That is very much how I operate as well. However, I have worked at institutions. I do work at an institution where you are expected to be on. And so that's something you have to think about, and setting boundaries for yourself and saying no to things and just navigating. I mean, the more you wear many hats, and I know it sounds like we do a lot of things, but you get used to it. You learn how to prioritize your time and use your Google Alerts, and you make it work. But you can also choose the environment that you work in as well. So there's that too.
Yeah, I would say working in residence life, especially as a resident director, like I can't even walk into my building with my groceries without somebody stopping me, because I have to walk through the main entrance of my building to get into the building. Some people are lucky enough in residence life that they have like an outside door that they can like sneak in behind the scenes. I do not have that pleasure. So especially working with first year students, they definitely want a lot from you. And a lot of the times it's me walking into the building, looking at my front desk and saying to them, I'm not talking about work right now. And walking into the building like with my groceries or my bag from Old Navy, because I'm an avid Old Navy shopper, but like just like things like that as well, just making sure that like my home life stays home type of thing.
Hi. If someone were interested in finding a position that would help them pay for their master's degree, where would they start looking for that? I know that sometimes, I mean, you could find them at the school at which you're going to, but if that weren't possible, for maybe if you're taking online courses or something like that, where would someone start looking for that?
I think there's somebody in a student affairs in the Northeast Facebook page made a comprehensive list of the programs and their stipends and the assistantships that they have. So look into that. I think anybody probably can join the group, but have you seen that?
I have it. I definitely have it bookmarked. I could give it to
So
you.
reach out to her and she'll give you the link.
Yeah. I would say either that or reach out to the program specifically. So like my position in residence life, anybody could have it at the university. You don't have to be going into higher education. So one of my best friends who's works the same job as me, she's in a social work program, which is much different than what I'm doing, but not really different from student affairs at all. But so you would definitely like reach out to whatever program you're applying to and just asking them, because there's a bunch of people who I'm in classes with who have positions at all different schools. So, and they pay for their tuition. So it's just about like, definitely I would say reach out to the program and just ask them as well. That's what I did when I was applying to programs. Some of them like have specifically, some higher ed programs specifically require you to have an assistantship in order to go through the program. Like UConn's does that, for example, but mine didn't. So I necessarily didn't have to have one. But I would definitely just reach out to the department and then also ask them for connections of people who have those jobs now or before you apply to it, and ask them to go get coffee and meet up with them and ask them about their experience, because that will really like solidify it for you if that's an experience you want and how it will complement whatever degree you're getting.
So when I was applying to Hofstra, I had missed the deadlines for a lot of the graduate assistantships because I didn't decide I was going there until closer to February or March, at which point they had already filled many of those positions. So pay attention to your timeline. But I actually reached out to an Eastern alum who was working at the university. Mm-hmm. They didn't have anything in their area, but they helped to connect me to other departments. So some of it is that networking piece too. It was somebody I did not know at all. I heard the name. Somebody connected me to them through LinkedIn, and we ended up, we're still in touch professionally because of that first outreach. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of avenues to pursue.
We still have time for at least one more question. Well, actually, since there's applause, I have a question for Monica. You were saying that one of your favorite parts of your job is doing the conduct hearings.
Oh, yes.
That kind of surprised me. Why is that a favorite part of your job?
So yeah, I act as a hearing officer. So how that works is anytime a student gets in trouble or documented on campus, essentially the RAs write a report and then we get it and we just adjudicate as we do. So I think that's my favorite part, is because that's the time I get to see students at some of their worst moments. So a lot of the times it's somebody's drinking underage on campus, or they're violating quiet hours, or they're violating the guest policy. So it's kind of, it's a lot of how I work with my meetings is first I build rapport with the student. So essentially I just get to know them for who they are. I don't ask them anything about the situation that's going on. And normally in those first 15 minutes of the conduct hearing is when I find out why the student did what they did. So a lot of the times it's because they're stressed at home and they needed their friend to come up here, so they decided to sneak them into the building. Or a lot of the times it's because they're having issues with the academics, so they decided to drink their problems away and do X, Y, and Z, and then they got caught for throwing a party in their room. So I think, yeah, during those moments is when I really get to change a student for how they're really going to be successful for the rest of their time at that university. So last year I had a student in particular who violated the guest policy during Halloween. So I work in Salem. Right now this month is absolutely insane, let me tell you. So you can only have one guest in the building and you have to sign them in. You have to sign in guests 24 hours a day in my residence halls. But the student decided to sneak the student in through an emergency door. And then after talking to him, I found out he was not involved in campus at all. Did nothing on campus, would just go to classes, hang out with his friends from home, bring him up, etc. So then I decided, instead of sanctioning him with writing a reflection paper about why he snuck somebody in through an emergency exit door, I had him get involved in a program on campus. So he got involved in that program, and he ended up writing me a letter afterwards about how I changed his life. And I did not expect that at all, coming out of a conduct hearing, something you would think like a student is like a negative experience for a student, but I ended up like kind of turning the whole situation around for him, and he ended up staying at the university, and he got heavily involved in that program that I sanctioned him to. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, but I love it.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Any other questions? Do you have anything left on your list that's worth asking, do you think? We have time for one more, so. Oh,
There's one in the back.
Oh,
wait, there's another question back. Okay.
You can go.
I got a question for you.
okay.
So you described like a biased event
Mm-hmm.
that was like a conduct situation.
Yep.
Can you describe what happened? And
Sure. Essentially, we have a baseball field at Salem State, and people wrote remarks about white supremacy on the baseball field. Essentially, after that, our administration responded to it by having an open forum in the quad of our campus. The students did not agree with that at all. You could look all this up online too. There's videos and everything. The students did not agree with that at all. So the students then decided to protest it. So we had about 100 students protest it, and since I'm considered a graduate student, we were allowed to protest as well, even though I also worked for the university, which is it's a very interesting dynamic when you're a graduate student who also works at the same university, because it's like hard to like navigate that political climate type of thing. But our supervisors allowed us to also participate in the protest. So we participated in the protest, and then the students held their own forum and made a list of demands of what they wanted from the university to repair the damage that had happened, the emotional damage, the trauma that had occurred after that incident. So they came up with this list of demands, and we just got a new president at the university as well. So it was a great time for kind of like this open dialogue about the racism on our campus. So they presented them with a list of demands, and so far 7 out of those 10 have been completed. The other 3 probably will never be completed, which is really sad to think about, because they just closed down our Diversity and Multicultural Center and merged it with student activities, which is pretty insane, and it's now called LEAD. So it's like, it's a very interesting dynamic in our campus, and there's definitely still like issues that are going on from the aftermath of that. But if you want to look it up, you really can. It's Salem State University. It happened in September of last year, and it definitely like shaped my experience of my graduate experience as a whole. I think without that event, I would be missing out on a lot. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
So, I can use this. Thanks to all of our panelists, and thank you all for being here, for listening, for asking questions. Thanks to Emily for moderating.
Yeah, thank you.
And we do hope to have some more of these panels in the future. I'm working on putting one together for next semester, so be on the lookout for our flyers. Thanks, everybody.